A group pet, koi carp, space, vest, cuisine, and communication skills between animals and plants. The poor and jingling old Fu family finally gave birth to a little daughter. So, good things happened one after another. The mountain chicken and wild rabbit are delivered to the door by themselves, and ginseng and lingji are picked up casually. The brothers have also gained momentum, such as the general of the country, the chief assistant of the court, the wealthy merchant of the royal family, and the top chef. However, the brothers who dominate the area have made a mistake. Someone shamelessly came to grab their flesh, and they dare not stop them. Someone smiled smugly and placed the jade seal in Fu Jiujiu's hand. Well behaved, this is the dowry. Fu Jiujiu said, do you want to marry me? Line up first. Chapter 001. Gave birth to a little girl. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Qinghe County, Yangshu Village, experienced 3 consecutive years of severe drought, with no harvest in the fields. This year, despite abundant rainfall, we encountered consecutive rainy days without seeing the sun for more than 10 days. The crops are at a critical moment for grain production, and if it continues like this, there will be no hope for this year. Under the big willow tree at the east end of the village, there were many men, women, and children sitting there. They couldn't get off the ground, and when the house became stuffy, they came out to grind their teeth. Old Fu's family is giving birth again. Do you think it's a man or a woman this time? The Fu family is a monk's temple. 8 sons were born before, and the same goes for rebirth. I think it was burned, and others couldn't even ask for it. Their family sent away 2 girls who insisted on having children. Just having an illness. No, it's strange if the Taoist who walks the streets and alleys can be trusted. Why hasn't the rain stopped yet? Fu family. Mrs. Wang, the midwife, hurriedly came out of the room, her face pale as she swallowed saliva. Fu Million hurriedly stepped forward and said, have you given birth? Is it a daughter? Mrs. Wang's face was solemn. Brother Fu, you haven't given birth yet. The situation is not good. Your sister-in-law may have difficulty giving birth. Upon hearing about difficult childbirth, Fu Wanwan's old face instantly lost its color and his hands and feet felt numb. He was so helpless that he helped a large water tank. Old. Eldest. Daughter-in-law, go and ask the Jean to invite the doctor. Dad, where did we get the money from in our family? Zhou's face turned pale. If you don't have any money, owe it first. Your mother's life is of utmost importance, Fu Million shouted with a dark face. It's all at this critical moment. Please come back and forth for an hour, doctor. What are you doing? Do you want to collect the corpse? Zhou reluctantly left the door, but there was no sign of anxiety. Hurry up, Fu Million shouted loudly, trembling with anger. Zhou was so frightened that he quickened his pace. Second wife, hurry up. Quickly get your mother some brown sugar water and add more sugar. Fu Baiwan ended up crying. His wife had been living a difficult life with him for most of her life, and after giving birth to so many sons, he had already given up having a daughter. But who knew that my wife was still able to conceive when she was in her 40s? Wu's eyes turned slightly red as she choked up, got it, Dad. There is no brown sugar left at home. Unfortunately, she is close to her mother's house, so Wu decided to go back and order some. What else should I do? If this is my mother-in-law's last meal, at least I'll eat and drink until I'm full and warm before going on the road. If a woman gives birth to a child and encounters difficult childbirth, it is basically half of her body going into the coffin. At this moment, Aunt Wang's hands were covered in blood and came out again. Seeing her like this, there was no need to speak, and Fu Million felt that the situation was even worse. Old master, your feet are coming out first. Those who have given birth know that if their feet come out first, it is a safe and difficult childbirth. Fu Baiwan almost fainted and forced himself, saying, his aunt, if you keep trying, the children can't live without their mother. Mrs. Wang shook her head and glanced at Fu Wanwan, but couldn't help feeling angry. You've spent all the women, who can give me a hand. Look at the men in your house, why don't you come and help? Oh, oh. Without saying a word, Fu Wanwan quickly followed in, without worrying about any men not being able to enter the delivery room and get moldy. When their family grows melons, God will let the beans harvest abundantly. When their family grows beans, God will let the melons grow well that year. Doing small business at a loss, breaking a leg while walking, and going to the mountains to pick mushrooms. They all come back with a full load, but they don't pick many poisonous mushrooms. After eating them, the whole family almost met the king of hell together. There are so many unlucky things like this. Even if you drink cold water and stuff your teeth, are you afraid of getting even worse? Mrs. Fu, you need to put in more effort. This baby looks like a doll to me. Mrs. Wang actually doesn't know what she can tell with just a pair of chubby little feet. She only knew that the old couple were determined to have a girl and didn't want to risk their lives by smashing their signs. They just said something she loved to hear and hung up on her. Tian Hohat originally had little strength, thinking that her old fate was about to catch up, but when she heard that it was a young girl, her eyes widened and her strength gradually crawled back. She can't die, she has a daughter. Mrs. Wang quickly stepped forward upon seeing the situation and said, listen to me, work hard, work hard. Okay, yes, inhale. Work hard. It's almost. Hush. Fu Jiu suddenly felt a squeezing sensation. What was the situation? Didn't she die in a car accident? The mouth and nose are filled with water, and the sound in the ears is noisy, creating a more intense sense of pressure. No, she can't sit idly by. She's going out. Unable to open her eyes, she struggled with her hands and feet. Finally, that sense of oppression disappeared. She was saved. Born, Mrs. Wang exclaimed excitedly. A baby cry scared the rain to a sudden halt, and at some point, a beautiful bird fell from the old elm tree in front of the door. It also started chirping, as if announcing that it was a happy occasion. Mrs. Wang cleaned the child and handed it to Fu Wanwan. Brother Fu, you have achieved your wish this time, but don't let it happen again. Sister-in-law, you have a great fortune, and you have saved your life for nothing. It won't be good next time, she said. Fu Baiwan looked at his fair and handsome little girl, laughing so hard that he couldn't see his teeth or eyes. He rubbed his hands on his chest before daring to catch the little white ball in his swaddling clothes. If I don't give birth, I'll have my daughter now. What else should I give birth to? Outside the door, Fu Lujin and Fu Bajin were arguing to see their younger sister. Dad, quickly tell us to take a look at the little sister. Hug. Sister. Fu Million gently put down his daughter, as if afraid of startling her. The door curtain was lifted, and his smile faded. He looked disgusted and said, hold your butt, if you throw your sister down again, you won't be able to walk steadily. Fu Bajin pouted and was about to cry, but thought it might scare his sister. Then he ran to the yard with short legs and cried. Wow, Lu Jin, go tell your third brother to bring back more things. Your mother is weak and needs to be replenished. Fu Baiwan glanced at his tired and sleeping wife on the bed, feeling mixed in his heart. Fu Lujin was scratching his heart and liver, wanting to see his little sister. He begged, Dad, can I just take a look at my little sister? Roll on, my sister is sleeping. After sending away 2 skinny monkeys, Fu Wani put down the door curtain, wiped his hands, and washed his face before going to see his little girl. At this moment, the little girl had already woken up, her eyes open, the corners of her mouth slightly raised, and 2 deep pear swirls filled with sweet smiles. This is Fu Jiu's blessing that he survived the disaster without losing his body or soul. Outside the window, there is a long rainbow hanging in the sky, and birds chirp. Daughter, even birds bring good news to Dad. Fu Jiu looked at his father, who was laughing uncontrollably, with only one thing in his mind. She is hungry. She is starving to death. Wow. Wow. Fu Jiu is crying, but Fu Million is laughing. Because the louder the crying, the better the body. Fu Baiwan's heart melted as he looked at the lovely little girl. Jojo Xiaojiu. Yes, the little girl is called Jojo. Fu Jojo. What exactly did Chapter 002 give birth to? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Upon hearing her daughters crying, Tian Hohat woke up. The first thing I do when I open my eyes is to take a look at the little girl in the swaddling clothes, who is pink carved and jade carved. Seeing that she is well, I feel at ease. The little girl looked at her with grievances. Tian Hohat knew that the little girl wanted to drink milk, but her body was weak and she didn't have much milk by the time she gave birth to the fifth child. The few below were not as good as each other, and their survival depended entirely on their luck. Fu Jiu cried for a while, but didn't get a bite to eat, so she stopped crying and wasted her energy. Oh, my wife, Jojo smiled. Oh, my mother, she looks so beautiful. Tian Hohat looked puzzled and said, Jojo. Fu Baiwan only glanced at her, then quickly looked back at the little girl and said, that's how the beautiful wealthy bird outside calls it. Tian Hohat's face was pale, but her heart was also filled with joy. She glared at the man and said, just because you're so out of tune, their daughters call you Lana. Mayors, just say my name also has flowers, you. Fu Baiwan said happily, my daughter is a lucky bag, can she be like them? Fu Baiwan always felt that the bird was here to bring him good news. That name is correct. Tian Hohat sat up half propped up, looking at the chubby baby with chubby flesh. Although she didn't eat anything good when she was pregnant, the baby was still being raised in her belly for nothing. It seems like a fortunate person. Lucky bag. That old Taoist tricked you into talking nonsense about those $2 in your pocket. Our family must all be daughters, so he must say that having a son will bring good luck. Tian Hohat touched the little girl's face with her hand, and her heart was about to melt. The Taoist said. Fu Million, -million, gave birth to a daughter Rich Million. Fu Baiwan just listened and said happily, whatever, I have a daughter anyway. Daughter-in-law, not to mention, this little girl is just different from a stinky kid. They were all wrinkled and looked like losers back then. Look at my daughter, she's white and chubby. Regardless of whether the Taoist's words were spiritual or not, when he saw the little girl, Fu Million felt that he had made a profit and had a bright future ahead of him. Tian Hohat has given birth to so many of her own and has seen many newborn dolls from other families. Not to mention, her daughter looks handsome. Shoo, don't talk, my daughter is asleep. Fu Jiu didn't want to sleep either, but his eyelids were heavy and his small body couldn't be turned on for too long. Sleep, sleep. There is everything in my dream. Fu Lujin hopped to find Fu Sanjin who was going up the mountain hunting in the rain. What if it's not like this? A big family is waiting for dinner, but there's not much hope. There won't be much on a sunny day, so it's good to pick some mushrooms on a rainy day. The rain stopped and it was time for dinner. The people under the big willow tree were also going to disperse and go home to cook and eat. As soon as Fu Xiaolu came over, everyone stopped. Lu Jin, what are you in a hurry to do? Did your mother give birth? Born. Did I give birth to a younger brother for you again? Fu Lujin ran and turned around, grinning and saying, Madam Fan, this is my younger sister. Is it really fake? Did your mother give birth to a daughter? Fu Lujin was busy looking for his third brother, but he didn't have time to talk to her more. Madam Fan stopped Fu Bajin with short legs, grabbed her arm, and lifted the person into the air. 6 brothers. Bajin, tell auntie, what did your mother give birth to? Fu Bajin looked at the group of people surrounding him, his eyes twirling. Especially Mrs. Fan, who is so bloodthirsty that it feels like he's going to eat people. Every time he sees her, he has to walk around. My younger sister is a treasure, they shouldn't be preparing to rob her, right? Brother. Children won't lie, Aunt Fan pursed her lips and chuckled, look, I just said that no one can be a daughter, their family will have a son. Ba Jin, are you really a younger brother? Fu Bajin nodded heavily, my younger sister is a treasure and cannot be taken away. With a handle. Ah, there are chicks. Having a son. That's not interesting anymore. Madame Fan put down Fu Bajin and greeted everyone to leave. Fu Bajin fell to the ground with both legs, watching the scattered birds and beasts, and secretly smiled, watching you snatch my sister. Third brother, third brother. Oh my. Fu Lujin ran all the way up the mountain and saw Fu Sanjin pulling his bow and shooting arrows, as if he had found prey. However, due to his voice, Fu Sanjin missed the shot. Lujin, what are you crying about? The wild chicken is gone. Fu Sanjin shook his head and helped up his tripped younger brother, what's wrong? Our mother has given birth. Fu Sanjin was still thinking about the wild chicken he hadn't shot just now. 9 out of 10 of his mother's offspring said it belonged to her son. Is it your younger brother again? It's younger sister, younger sister, younger sister. Fu Lujin exclaimed excitedly several times, afraid that he wouldn't hear him. Fu Sanjin's eyes widened in surprise. At this moment, the wild chicken that had just escaped was surprised and flew over from the small earthen slope on the opposite side, shouting. Falling at their feet, flapping their wings twice, they remained motionless. Brothers, look at me, I look at you. Third brother, rabbit, rabbit. Fu Sanjin looked over and saw a big fat rabbit jump out. He instinctively chased after it, but the rabbit rushed into a tree and fainted. The two brothers have a big wild chicken in their left hand and a fat rabbit in their right hand. They also carry a Polygonum multiflorum on their back, which just tripped over Fu Lujin. At the foot of the mountain, I met Fu Erjin, who had also returned with a full load of fish from the pond outside the village. Fu Erjin's 2 buckets were full, and his son Tianfu on his back was sleeping soundly at the moment. It's strange to say that on weekdays, I can't even catch a palm-sized fish. Today, it's all big grass carp, and big crucian carp are popping out. Upon learning that a little sister had been added to the family, Fu Erjin was also overjoyed and couldn't help but accelerate his pace to rush back. When the brothers entered the village, Aunt Fan had enough to eat and drink and came out again. Seeing what was in their hands, their eyes were filled with envy. Even in times of famine, no one's family is wealthy. Erjin, are you lucky today to have made so much profit? Fu Erjin nodded and said, yes, the water bubbles today are all fish. Pick them up casually, but the bucket is missing. Otherwise, I would still be able to catch so much. Madame Fan's eyes twitched. It was the first time she had heard of a fish being picked up casually in all these years. She is also going. All right, go home quickly. Your mother has given birth to a younger brother for you again. After speaking, she didn't look back and went home to pick up fish in a bucket. Brother. The 3 brothers looked at each other, and Fu Sanjin spoke softly, isn't it my sister? Xiao Lu. Fu Lujin was also confused. It's my younger sister. Mrs. Wang said it was my younger sister herself. I didn't hear it wrong. Madame Fan, who did you hear that from? What Ba Jin said. Aunt Fan came out carrying a bucket. So, is it a younger brother or a younger sister? Chapter 003. This is not a gift. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Fu Lujin was scolded by his 2 brothers and couldn't hear him completely, blindly passing the message. He is very aggrieved. Why became a younger brother even though she was just a younger sister? But he didn't see it either. Did Dad go crazy thinking about his daughter and misread her? The first thing the brothers do when they come back is to go find their father to verify. Son. Pooh, what are you guys saying? I have a daughter now. When he said this, Fu Million felt proud from the bottom of his heart. Fu Lujin snorted coldly and went to settle accounts with Fu Bajin. It was all because of him that he caused himself to be attacked by his two brothers. Fu Bajin blinked and said, sixth brother, keep your voice down. If Aunt Fan and her team know we have a little sister, they will come and steal. Fu Lujin was originally angry, but after hearing him say so, he understood. So this kid still has this kind of heart. However, stealing is impossible. The 5 daughters of Mrs. Fan's family are hoping to have a son. When the men were slaughtering chickens and fish, Wu brought in the boiled brown sugar water and refused to send it back. As soon as Wu entered the door, she saw her mother-in-law breastfeeding. She was surprised and said, Mom, did you come to breastfeed so soon? Tian Hohat also felt puzzled. In the first few pregnancies, there was not much milk to say, and breastfeeding was slow. In the first few days, the child was starving and crying. She was just worried, but she felt bloated and pinched it, and she really had milk. The little one ate his fill with a few gulps, and Wu handed over the brown sugar water, but his eyes couldn't move away from the little baby. As soon as Tian Hohat saw the brown sugar water, she understood what was going on. This is from the second family, isn't it what you asked for when you went back to your mother's house? Ah. Mom, please drink more to nourish your body. I just heard that the second-in-law caught some fish. Later, you can bring some to your parents to save your two sister-in-law from giving you a hard time. Wu smiled and was just upset by her two sister-in-law. Her mother-in-law was understanding and reasonable. Fu Jiu listened to the conversation between the two and thought that the second sister-in-law was good. Before going to bed, he even smiled at her. This smile made Wu extremely happy. Mom, my sister-in-law smiled at me. Newborn babies don't laugh much. Wu couldn't figure it out, why are there so many people who don't like daughters? Isn't this little girl chubby and pink? She just didn't give birth, she had to be so precious when she was born. Tian Hohat was also beautiful. This girl loves to laugh. She just laughed with your father for a while. Mother, my sister-in-law is fortunate. When she was born, both the second and third daughters got a lot of things. Just now, I heard them talking about how the black and unremarkable thing that Lu Jin picked up can sell for a lot of silver. Tian Hohat's eyes flickered, and she felt happy in her heart. She also thought it was good luck brought by the little girl, but she spoke humbly, just by chance, they always go out and can come back empty-handed time and time again. Wu Shixin said, isn't it just coming back empty time and time again after all the previous times? It's okay to be empty, neither cause trouble or get hurt. Daughter-in-law, the chicken and fish have been killed. You quickly stew them for your mother. Fu Erjin shouted under the window. As a result, due to the loud voice, he was scolded by his father, keep it down, scare your sister to see if I won't beat you. Tian Hohat smiled and said, look at your father, it's like he hasn't seen a daughter in 8 lifetimes. Where is this a daughter? This is his ancestor. Wu also laughed along, and as a daughter-in-law, she dared not argue with this. Her father-in-law looks fierce, but in fact, he treats everyone well. She reluctantly patted the smiling little guy and said, Auntie, be good. Second sister-in-law, I'll make something delicious for my mother now, and then you can have enough to eat. We just finished cooking here, and Fu Dajin just came back. Dad, how's Mom doing? Fu Wanwan glanced at him and saw that there was not even a fart behind him. What about the doctor? You invited a ghost back. I knew I couldn't count on you. I really relied on you. Your mother has gone to see your master's milk. Fu Dajin knew that his mother should be fine when he saw that the family was peaceful, otherwise she would have been crying and howling long ago. Dad, among the 3 doctors in town, our family owes them money. When they heard it was me, they didn't come. Fu Dajin was also very aggrieved, he really went. Fu Baiwan snorted coldly, why was it so slow? Did you crawl there? Upon hearing the news, Fu Dajin went. The rain washed away the bridge, so I crossed the river, so it was a bit slow. He gave a bitter smile and said, as long as my mother is fine. Alright, your mother gave birth to your younger sister, who is our great hero, blessed by our ancestors. Sister. Dad, did Mom really give birth to a sister for me? Fu Dajin swept away his fatigue, this time it's okay, our family is finally getting better. Fu Baiwan hesitated for a moment and said, those days were spent by a big guy with one heart. If things didn't go well, it was because he didn't use his energy properly. If things don't go well, he can't let his petite little girl take the blame. Of course, Fu Million believes that this situation is impossible. Erjin, why are you lying to others, kid? Aunt Fan stood at the door with a wooden bucket and a drooping face. Why are there so many fish popping out of the big water bubble that I can't finish picking them up? Pooh, I really believe your nonsense. When she went, she didn't even have any fingertips, which made her run for nothing. Fu Erjin heard the sound and said, I'm not lying, really. Look at how much I've picked up. Mrs. Fan was waiting for this sentence, that's just right. Your family can't finish eating so much, you need to give me one. I still keep it for sale at home. Fu Lujin pulled Fu Bajin out, and the brothers all agreed to raise him for a day. Tomorrow, they would exchange these things for money and buy a piece of floral cloth to make clothes for the little sister. The little girl has to dress beautifully. Madame Fan shook her head and said, it's not bad for this one. That's it. Xiao Lu, you're really stingy. I hurt you for nothing. Fu Lujin sneered and didn't see how much she hurt him. Million, can we discuss something with you? Give me your little son. This is the true purpose of Aunt Fan's visit. She can't give birth at her age, but she can't live without a son, so she came up with this idea. Fu Bajin is not afraid of snakes, not afraid of the big rooster at the village entrance, but afraid of Aunt Fan. Dad, don't give, I don't go. Fu Bajin was so scared that he took a few steps back and huddled behind Fu Lujin. I don't want you, I want the little brother you just gave birth to, Fan said, glaring at the 3-year-old doll who knows something and is not familiar with raising him. The brothers suddenly laughed, especially Fu Bajin's happiest smile. Why are you laughing? Aunt Fan was a bit confused when she was laughed at. Fu Baiwan sneered and said, Mrs. Fan, you have made a mistake this time. Xiaojiu in our family is a daughter, so she won't give anyone. She won't give anyone. The 4th child who was given out was also helpless. Even if he wasn't given out due to illness, his family wouldn't be able to support him. The other 7th child doesn't know where he is. Thinking about it, he still feels heartbroken. Saya family should be neat and tidy. Daughter. Aunt Fan looked at Fu Bajin, who was smiling with her mouth covered. Xiaoba, you little brat, how could you deceive me? Fu Bajin made a funny face and ran away. Chapter 004. Son is better. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhou took the opportunity to go back to her mother's house to get medicine. As for her mother.in.law, she couldn't even help if she had to live or die. She just needed to go back later. Mom, is this medicine sure to make me pregnant? Zhou Posey nodded confidently and said, don't worry, you can't just be pregnant. You must be a son. Your elder sister was the one who took this medicine to give birth to Dashizi. Your second sister didn't take it back then, and as a result, she gave birth to a girl. Upon hearing this, Zhou threw the medicine onto the Kong and said, Mother, why am I going to have a son? I want to have a daughter, daughter. Did you remember correctly? Zhou Pozi glared at her and said, "Are you stupid? Girl, I gave birth to the three of you in the movie. Your grandmother used to criticize you all day. What happened when she gave birth to your younger brother? Does she still scold me? She always praises me as a hero of the old Zhou family when she sees people. Speaking of this matter, Mrs. Zhou is particularly proud. Silly girl, listen to me. Your mother-in-law's words are just empty talk. They don't care about their son, they ignore their old face and give birth one after another. That's to have a daughter." Fart, Mrs. Zhou picked up her cigarette bag and took a strong puff. "That's what she said. Girl, let me tell you, I still have a son. Listen to my mother, that's absolutely right." Zhou snorted and said, "It's been 4 years since we got married. I've been watching my second wife give birth, and my mother-in-law gives birth again and again. Just me, my belly hasn't moved at all." Zhou Pozi patted her hand and said, "Then you have to hold back a man even more. After giving birth to a daughter, who will you rely on in the future?" Zhou's flat mouth, "As long as it can be born. Don't worry, even if you give birth to your daughter, the Fu family will become treasures." Mrs. Zhou pursed her lips and said, "Wait and see. If your mother-in-law were a daughter, you would know. She's a loser." Zhou doesn't like to hear this. She's just a daughter, why did she lose money? Even if the Fu family is poor, she still spends a lot of time at home. "Alright, I'm leaving." Zhou Pozi shook her head and said, "Remember, there's also that talisman paper. On the 1st and 15th days of junior high school, I'll give you a man some water. If you have a son, you must have one. If you give birth to a daughter, you won't be able to lift your head. That loser is useless." Zhou walked to the door and couldn't bear to listen anymore. "Mother, why is your daughter just a loser? What kind of heinous thing are the three of us sisters doing? You can't lift your head like this. If it weren't for the three of us sisters' efforts, your precious son would still be single now. My eldest brother-in-law and second sister-in-law, let's not talk about it. Our family's eldest daughter, Jean, has never worked hard to steal laziness during the spring and autumn harvest. Where's your son? Your son lies until the sun rises." The more she said, the angrier she became. "If you really think your daughter is a loser and spilled water, then let's not move around in the future. I'll just pretend to have no family." After Zhou finished speaking, he angrily left. Zhou Pozi was scolded for a long time without saying a word. "Humph, dead girl, I don't know what's going on, but you know you're angry with me, not like my son." She shook her head and said, "It's better to have a son." Zhou returned to the Fu family, and it was almost dark. Fu Million glanced at her, but because his wife and daughter were all fine, he was too lazy to say anything. Fu Dajin gave her a push and said, "If you don't go and see our sister, I'll hug everyone from the second family." Zhou lowered her face and said, "I see you're so happy. It's not your daughter, you're so happy. My mother-in-law is quite old and can still have children, but she is still young and motionless. She has no such mood. Don't look. It's even more disturbing to watch. Of course I'm happy, daughter-in-law. Let me tell you, since Jojo was born, many good things have happened in our family. I think our family is really going to have good luck this time." Fu Dajin lowered his head to look at her lower abdomen and said with a smile, "Maybe, with my sister's light, we can also have children." Zhou went crazy with jealousy in her heart and said, "What's the relationship between having a child and her? Don't put any gold on her face. Daughter-in-law, this is not me giving my little sister a discount." Immediately after, Fu Dajin recounted the good things that had happened at home on the afternoon when his little sister was born. "Let's just forget about this, let me tell you. The bridge was damaged halfway when I walked, and I almost didn't get washed away. It's just a little short. I think our little sister was lucky enough to save me. Where's the injury? You're a dead ghost, what should I do if something happens? Zhou was so anxious that she wanted to peel off her clothes and look. Fu Dajin held her hand and lowered his voice, it's okay, Pyre hasn't broken a single piece. I didn't even dare to tell my parents. They should worry when they know. Zhou glared at the man with anger, he was so foolish. However, she was actually good and also loved her very much. If someone else had not given birth and raised her for 4 years, she would have retired long ago. But she is in this home, but no one has given her any face. Usually, my family can't even eat enough at home, but today I'm making a lot of fish and meat. But Fu Baiwan only came out after being urged and invited by his son and daughter. In law 3 times. If it weren't for the young girl being too young to come out and receive the wind, he would have eaten with her. He glanced at the food on the table, frowned, and Wu quickly explained, Dad, Mom's portion is warming up in the pot. My father. In law loves my mother. In law, and she even sees it in her eyes. That fish. Fu Sanjin smiled and said, Dad, I told my second brother that I will take it to the town tomorrow and sell the medicinal herbs together. Fu Wanwan nodded in satisfaction and said, just have a good meal with good food. Life is going well, and it's good for our sons not to be greedy. First, repay the money you owe. It's not difficult to borrow and repay again. Remember to give more money. You've been owed for so long, so it's appropriate to give some interest. Fu Erjin nodded and said, I understand, Dad. The family was chatting and laughing, and Fu Million heard some commotion in the inner room. He quickly put down his bowl and said, Madam, go and bring the food left for your mother. After Fu Baiwan finished speaking, he entered the room, but Zhou remained motionless. From the second family, when I came back this afternoon, I twisted my foot and it still hurts. Wu smiled brightly and said, Sister-in-law, then don't move. I'll go. Anyway, I also want to see my sister. In law. She smiled coquettishly and said, Our dad is precious. Most people don't allow him to watch, hee hee. How happy Wu's smile is, how sour Zhou's heart is. Seeing Wu's cheerful expression, she also wanted to go in and take a look. The Wu family was diligent and went to close the door of the chicken coop after delivering food, but it didn't matter and they exclaimed in surprise. So what happened? It was a sudden surprise. Fu Baiwan sighed and touched the little girl's black hair. Touch her hair, you won't be scared. Jojo is not afraid, not afraid. Fu Jiu wanted to say that she was not afraid at all, so she extended her arm and moved her legs. When can she grow up? Wu shouted again, eggs, our chicken has laid eggs, there are so many eggs. Everyone knows that Fu's hens, like roosters, never lay eggs. Brothers, take a look at me, I'll take a look at you. The little sister brought another happy event. Chapter 005. Come, kiss one. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next day, the men were supposed to do their work, and those who were supposed to sell things were supposed to sell things. Zhou and Wu's sister. In law stayed at home to cook and take care of Tian Hohat. Mom, I want to see my aunt. Why doesn't Grandpa let me see my aunt yet? 3-year-old Fu Tianfu has been bombarded by Fu Wanwan 5 or 6 times since yesterday until today. He seized the opportunity to sneak in, but every time he was thrown out with his back collar. Last night, he heard his mother tell his father that his little aunt was both white and handsome, and his heart became restless. He hasn't been bedridden even today. Wu was annoyed by his question and found an excuse to leave. I'll go steam a bowl of chicken cake for your grandmother. If you listen, Grandpa will let you see, she said. Fu Tianfu couldn't wait any longer. He stepped on a small stool and grabbed the windowsill, followed the broken window paper and looked inside. He saw the patched little quilt, and before he could see what the people inside looked like, they were discovered. Go and play with your uncle. Fu Baiwan and Tian Hohat were so excited all night yesterday that they didn't sleep. Taking advantage of the little girl's time of eating, drinking, and sleeping, the old couple also planned to squint for a while. Fu Wanwan woke himself up with just one snore, but he couldn't snore. What should he do if he were disturbing his little daughter? He instinctively reached out to touch the little doll next to him, but ended up feeling empty. He instantly woke up and looked again. What about people? Where is his little girl? Fu Jukuai was knocked unconscious by these two little guys, especially the one with a runny nose, who kept moving his face closer to him. Auntie, why are you so good looking? Let me have a good time, right? Fu Jiu glared fiercely at him, howling inwardly. Little brat, stay away from me. If you dare to kiss me, I will. Do you know who I am? Blessing, don't kiss your sister. Fu Bajin had a cold face and displayed the dignity of his uncle. Although he was 2 months younger than this nephew, his carrots were not good enough and he grew up in his generation. Well. Okay, I'll hug you. Fu Jiu's heart finally returned to her stomach. Fortunately, her first kiss of 2 lifetimes was saved, 8 gold coins. Adding blessings. 2 little bunnies, hurry up and return my daughter. There are only these 2 little brats left at home. Who could have done such an outrageous thing? Upon hearing his father wake up, Fu Jiu quickly howled twice and asked him to take him back. She was really worried that these 2 thin and weak little puddings would drop her to the ground. Her soft, noodle-like arms and legs, as well as her soft, stomping little head, make her silly when she falls. Fu Baiwan followed the sound and went to Fu Erjin's west wing, quickly snatching the little girl back and gently comforting her not to cry. You too. Fu Baiwan was about to say a few harsh words when the little girl in his arms pouted again, which made Fu Baiwan feel heartbroken. Oh. Jojo, be good, Dad, be quiet. You too. Fu Million lowered his voice this time, but the little girl who didn't even cry was unhappy again. Okay, Dad won't say anything anymore. Dad took you to have dinner with your mother. The little girl didn't cry this time. Fu Wanwan was puzzled. Could it be that his daughter is a prodigy? Can you understand language within 2 days of birth? Fu Jiu just thinks those 2 dolls are cute and doesn't have any bad intentions. He doesn't want them to be scolded because of him. Fu Jiu, who returned to his mother's embrace, was fed another meal. What are we girls looking at? The little girl had a slight disturbance, and Fu Million was very nervous. That's enough to eat. Fu Jiu feels bitter in his heart. My dear mother, I'm not stunned when I'm full, I'm just peeing. Urinated. Thinking of her as an all-powerful figure of the 22nd century, she actually wet her pants. It's so embarrassing. It's strange to say, the first few don't have much milk, but I can't finish eating this. I want to feed Xiaoba more. Look at him, he's as thin as a numb stick. When Tian Hohat woke up in the morning, her clothes were wet and she was overjoyed. She quickly fed her daughter. Fu Wanwan touched his daughter's little feet and gestured incessantly, wanting to swallow them all in one gulp. Xiaoba finished eating. How will my daughter eat? How old is he? What will he eat? Give it to my daughter. Tian Hohat just said that, but he didn't expect to take it seriously. Oh, why is this girl looking at me like this? Fu Baiwan noticed that Xiananbao had been staring at him. Fu Jiu gave up. What about the agreed-upon tacit understanding between father and daughter? It seems that this move is not working. So, wow, oh my, what's wrong with being a good girl? Tian Hohat gently patted Fu Jojo in her arms, but she didn't see any improvement at all. Not full. Fu Million's anxious expression changed. Tian Hohat flipped her clothes and said, no, she just vomited it herself, so she's already full. Sure enough, Xiaojiu didn't eat. What should I do? Does it hurt somewhere? My dear, stop crying and tell Dad where it hurts. Fu Jiu. Dad, I don't hurt, I just pee. Wow wow, Zhou and Wu were in the kitchen, both of them heard the commotion. What's wrong with this? Crying so loudly, don't be uncomfortable anymore. Zhou rolled his eyes and said, my parents have given birth to so many, and I have more experience than you. Aren't you meddling in your own business? Wu smiled helplessly, but her heart had already drifted into the room. The egg custard should be ready, I'll go and deliver it to my mother. Zhou looked at her back, pursed his lips, and went to flatter her. But, isn't that child really going to have something to do? When Wu entered, she heard her in-laws laughing. She was a bit puzzled and said, Dad, Mom, what's wrong with this? I just heard my sister-in-law cry, why are you laughing? Tian Hohat pursed her lips and nodded at her own man, it's okay, Jojo peed. This guy scared your father, thinking it's okay. His soul has flown away. Wu snorted, not only her father-in-law, but even she was worried to death just now. Looking at the newly replaced urine ring, Wu's eyes didn't blink. Dad, give it to me. I'll go wash my sister-in-law. The sun is bright and we can do it in the afternoon. When she gave birth to a baby, her mother-in-law had a big belly to serve her during confinement. At this moment, she should also serve her mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Fu Jiu turned his head to look at this virtuous second sister-in-law, really not too kind. But she still feels so ashamed. I'll go, Fu Wanwan said in a deep voice, not as if he was joking. Dad, you big man can't wash it clean. Besides, the riverbank is full of women, so it's not convenient for you to go. Tian Hohat nodded and felt relieved, second wife, thank you for your hard work. It's not hard, why bother working hard? Auntie, come and give my sister-in-law a smile. I've washed you beautifully. This requirement is too simple. Fu Jiu immediately gave her a sweet smile. Indulge in personal obsession. Oh, you're really laughing. Oh, you're just smiling. You can ask my sister-in-law to do anything. Wu didn't lie. She looked at the little girl with a sweet smile, her heart warming. The Zhou family outside the door pouted angrily, and only the second family would show their hospitality. But when she thought of letting her wash the ring that was both wet and fecal, she couldn't take it down. Chapter 006. She can understand bird language. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wu's hands and feet were agile, and she didn't even have much time to bring them back. She even took the time to scold several women in the village who loved to gossip about their wives. They are just joking about how father-in-law and mother-in-law, who are in their 40s, still have children, and how to have a daughter. Wu is not like Zhou. She is a girl from our village, and her family is also here. She knows these people for a long time, and she has more confidence. Although she adjusted her emotions when she returned, she was still noticed by her mother-in-law. Did you have a fight with someone from the second family? Tian Hohat gently put down Xiao Jiujiu and compared the cloth just bought by her brothers on the little one's body. No. I don't know about you yet. You may seem soft-tempered, but in fact, you're tough. People outside say whatever they like, so don't worry. Wu admired this mother-in-law very much. She didn't know a single big character, but she had great wisdom. She knew many things at a glance. Got it, Mom. Zhou put down the clean urine ring she had just brought back, neatly folded it, and caught a glimpse of Tian Hohat's movements. She quickly called for a stop. My mother, you're still in confinement now. You can't do needlework and strain your eyes. If you don't mind, let me do it. Wu's needlework is very outstanding. When she was in her mother's family, she relied on it to make money to support her family. Life was not easy, so she wanted to get more money back. The relationship is good, it's you. Aren't you rushing to make ends meet? It's okay, I don't need this little dress from my aunt. I'll have it if I sleep less at night. As soon as the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law finished speaking, Fu Wanwan's happy laughter came from outside the door. Okay, this money needs to be kept. Yeah, it's almost the end of the month. Xiao Wu should come back. This time, I'll give him more, so he won't have to go hungry in the future. We're just someone who studies, so we can't lose out on him. Fu Dajin rubbed his hands and looked at his younger brothers again. Sanjin, let's go up the mountain later and see if we can still find any treasures. As soon as she said she was going up the mountain, Fu Jiujiu, who was closing her eyes and recuperating, suddenly opened her big black grape-like eyes and pursed her lips, crying. Her crying shattered the hearts of both mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Without Tian Hohat's explanation, Wu understood. I'll go see what they're arguing about. Look at how scared my sister-in-law is. In fact, the men had already stopped after hearing Xiao Jiujiu's crying. Can't stop, Fu Million's fierce gaze scared me to death. Don't make any noise, it scared your sister. Look, I won't kick you. Mingming, his voice was the loudest just now. Fu Wanwan couldn't stop crying, so he quickly went back to take a look. His little girl listened to him the most, and if he hugged her, she would definitely not cry. What's wrong with Jojo? Fu Baiwan met Wu Shi and gestured for her to go out. Tian Hohat shook her head in confusion and said, I didn't pee, I didn't pull, I didn't breastfeed, I didn't eat, and I started crying in good condition. Shouldn't it be sick? Fu Baiwan just finished speaking and gave himself a mouthful. Pooh, my daughter is doing well. The old couple are in such a hurry, Fu Wanwan's embrace and coaxing are useless. Fu Jiujiu is even more urgent. She can't go up the mountain. There are tigers on the mountain, and they have already reached the back mountain. How did she know? Fu Jiujiu looked at the tightly closed window, where two birds were talking outside. She didn't know why, but she actually understood the birds' language. At least she was a golden finger, but she didn't know if her previous life space had followed her. Anyway, her consciousness couldn't enter now. Fu Jiujiu stopped crying when she was tired, and if she cried again, she would faint. Upon seeing this, Fu Baiwan felt that it must be his own credit. If others couldn't coax him, he would have to do it himself. Sure enough, having a daughter is not wrong. The daughter is close to the father. Jojo, be good, don't cry, don't cry. Later, your older brother and third brother will go hunting in the mountains to earn money and buy you many good things. Finally, when she finally got what she wanted to hear, Fu Jiujiu burst into tears again. This made Fu Wanwan cry uncontrollably, and he didn't know what to say. He casually said, Oh, no, I won't go then. I won't go. Yes, don't go. Fu Jiujiu's crying suddenly came to an end. Fu Baiwan took a deep breath and looked at his equally bewildered wife. Do you think we Jiujiu can understand what I'm saying? Tian Hohat glanced at him and chuckled, what nonsense. Why is your daughter so powerful? A fairy. She only understood in 2 days. Coincidentally. Fu Baiwan took a deep breath and then looked down at the little girl in his arms. Girl, your older brother and third brother have gone up the mountain. Fu Jiujiu understood her parents' conversation and felt that she should not expose herself too early to avoid being mistaken for a monster. Fu Baiwan looked at the indifferent little nanny and took a deep breath. Did you really go? Tian Hohat couldn't help but laugh. You silly old man, if it gets out, people will have to say you're crazy. What do the dolls of those 2 days know? Fu Baiwan also felt that he might be in a daze. Although he dispelled the idea that his daughter was a prodigy, he couldn't bear to let go. I don't think we should let the 2 children go to the mountains today. I've been exhausted from a trip to the town, and there's also the boss's family. I haven't seen them since I gave birth, so I must be feeling uncomfortable. Isn't it because I'm rich? What's wrong? Fu Million teased the little baby in his arms. His daughter's eyes were sparkling and sparkling. The thief looks good. No, his daughter looks good everywhere with her nose, mouth, and ears. The eldest daughter.in-law has been married for 4 years and hasn't had any children. When she's rich, let the eldest take her to see. There aren't many women who don't want to have children after getting married. When it comes to the boss's family, Fu Wanwan feels a bit headache. After watching so much, they all say it's difficult to have children. That depends too. Fu Baiwan thought that he had earned over 20 taels of silver this time, and he didn't feel any pain giving his eldest son any. Wife, guess how much money Jojo has made for our family this time? You old thing, you're so biased. Your daughter only eats and sleeps. How can she earn money? Be careful not to let your sons hear this. If you hear it, then you hear it. It's all good luck brought by my daughter, Fu Million disagreed. Tian Hohat pushed his face away and said, be careful that your beard is tied around your daughter. With her words, Fu Million immediately withdrew his chin and decided to shave off his beard. Tian Hohat watched as he magically pulled out a silver ingot covered in gums from his arms. Her eyes widened and she said, how old are you? Fu Million blinked and took out another one. Not only, there's more. I've made a fortune. Tian Hohat has never seen such a big silver ingot in her life. The little girl is indeed fortunate. She was born with money in her family, unlike the previous few who had no food or drink and could only go hungry. Grandma, I want to see my aunt. I want to give her mushrooms. The old couple, who were smiling and singing, suddenly had a big change in their face. Chapter 007. This brother is not ordinary. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Eat a shitty mushroom. The mushroom you picked last time almost killed the whole family. Since the last time, Fu Million has turned pale when talking about mushrooms and has made up his mind not to eat mushrooms even if he starves to death. Not a bite. You're a person who insists on speaking well. The child is still young, so don't scare him anymore. Fu Baiwan's temper is a bit irritable, but fortunately Tian Hohat has a gentle temperament, but that is also not easy for her own family and external parties. I don't say that, he doesn't have a long memory. Tian Hohat happened to see the little girl staring at her big black eyes and smiled, saying, you're so fierce. Even Jier Jojo is afraid of you. What will you do? Fu Million's fire just now rushed to the top of his head and was extinguished by this sentence. He quickly picked up the small milk ball, and Fu Jojo, who had eaten and drunk enough, still had milk stains on her lips. The milk flavor was fragrant and sweet, and if it weren't for fear that her rough face would hurt her. Fu Million has to kiss again and again. Jojo is not afraid, Dad is not bad at you, Dad is bad at them. Fu Jojo stretched out her arms and moved her legs in response to her father's favor. Upon seeing this, Fu Wanwan suddenly became cloudy and cleared up, and his tone improved a lot. Tianfu, last time you had a stomachache after eating mushrooms, you forgot about it. Go find your 8th uncle. Uncle Ba is not at home. What did you go for? There are many sons, originally one by one, but now that they have given birth to a little girl, Fu Wanwan doesn't care much about his sons anymore. Besides, there is a large population and children in the village, so the 3 or 4-year-old adults give up and don't come back to call out when it's time for dinner. Not at home usually saves trouble. I don't know, he doesn't take me. At the end, the little one still had a slight complaint, indicating that he couldn't go out with Fu Bajin. He was a bit angry. Stinky guy just doesn't listen, runs around the street, doesn't care. Fu Baiwan waved his hand and said, you go play too. Fu Tianfu was just kicked out by his mother, who was making clothes for her aunt. She looked so beautiful and said, Grandpa, when can I see my aunt again? Almost, when your aunt is full moon, you can meet her casually. Fu Tianfu is very easy to pass the time. He counted and found that there were still 20.8 days left until his aunt's full moon. When it comes to the full moon, Tian Ho-hot originally thought that the whole family would just sit together and be lively for a while. Ko-fu Million disagreed and shook his head like a tambourine. That won't work. What's going on? Tian Ho-hot was a bit unhappy. I gave birth to a daughter for you. Let's make the whole family lively, can't we? I didn't mean that. Fu Baiwan knew she had misunderstood and quickly explained, what I mean is that Jiujiu's full moon wine needs to be specially prepared, so that family and friends, as well as all the villagers, know that I have a daughter. Tian Ho-hot chuckled and said, look, there's 2 coins burning you down, and you're running a special event. You just don't want to do it. Everyone knows we have a daughter at home. The village is so big, not to mention families like them giving birth to daughters, it is the offspring of their dogs, and the transmission of several males and females can be clear. Fu Baiwan disagrees. He just wants to do something big, but he can't let the little girls suffer injustice. Taking advantage of Fu Baiwan squatting in the pit, Fu Bajin lifted the door curtain, and Tian Ho-hot, who was closing her eyes and recuperating, caught a glimpse of her youngest son and continued to pretend to sleep. The old man didn't know what he was thinking. His daughter was fair, chubby, and handsome, yet she didn't show off. Fu Bajin walked lightly to the edge of the Kong, remembering that his 5th brother had once said that their hands were actually very dirty, and even after washing, there would be something that would make people sick. My younger sister can't get sick, and the same goes for her mouth. Rinsing her mouth is also not good. For the sake of her healthy growth, he has to endure not kissing or touching her. So, at that time, Fu Tianfu wanted to kiss his little sister, which was why he stopped her. Jojo, I'm your 8th brother. We've met before, this is for you. Fu Jojo originally looked at him with a wary expression on her face, afraid that he would steal herself out again. Fortunately, it was her villain. I like it, I made it myself. Fu Jojo originally had little interest in this thing and the workmanship was very rough, but when he heard that it was made by him himself, his eyes lit up. What a big child he is. I heard his mother say she wants to breastfeed him before. How amazing my hands-on ability is. Damn it. A prodigy. Dad is back, I'm leaving. When you grow up, I'll make more little things for you. Jojo, you need to grow up quickly. Evening. Octopus is really good. Fu Jojo looked at the skinny little doll and blinked. She also wants to grow up. Although Zhou Posey thought from the bottom of her heart that her son was good and her daughter was a loser, she also knew that the autumn harvest was coming soon and she still had to rely on her daughter and son-in-law for help. Her son couldn't do such rough work, so he brought 2 kilograms of corn to the Fu family to nurse. Entering the door is a guest, let alone being in-laws. No matter what you think in your heart, you will always pass by on the face. Mrs. Zhou arrived, and Zhou followed her into her in-law's room. Fu Jojo had been born for 7 days, and this was the first time she had seen her. At first glance, it didn't matter, and she couldn't bear to move away from the little child's face. The little nanny, carved in powder and jade, is clean and has a delicate eyebrow and eyes. With just such a little, one can tell that she will definitely be a little beauty in the future. No wonder the second family always sneaks into this house when they have something to do. Who wouldn't like to see such a beautiful little doll? Mother-in-law, you are fortunate enough to be able to have children at such an old age. Now that you have both children. Zhou Posey said congratulations on her lips, but she didn't think so in her heart. Our daughter hasn't been raised by herself, so she's not very good at taking care of others. Unlike your second wife, who has given birth herself, she has the heart to help you hold her, afraid she might break it for you. There are many people in my family, so there's no need for the boss's family. What good fortune do I have? I can't compare to you. You have both children long ago, and at my age, I still have to raise a baby. Tian Ho-hot smiled. Although she had to wake up a few times at night, this little girl was particularly aware of the pain. She ate and slept well, and didn't make a fuss at all. I only cry when I have a diarrhea, and rarely cry when I pee. She is now more effortless in taking care of her children than when she was young. That's it, said Mrs. Zhou proudly. She turned her head to look at Fu Jiujiu and said, such a precious little girl, she looks like a baby with bumps. You can't let your sister-in-law hurt her, can you? Mrs. Zhou ignored it and raised her hand to touch Fu Jiujiu's face. She had just smoked a dry cigarette in Zhou's room, and her mouth and hands smelled of smoke. It smells so bad that Fu Jiujiu feels nauseous when she smells it. So she vomited milk. It's normal for a newborn baby to vomit milk, but Tian Hohat felt heartbroken and quickly picked it up and gently patted it. She also smelled the scent of Zhou Posi's body, so the boss, who couldn't smell it, hugged his daughter and retreated. However, Mrs. Zhou didn't take it seriously and thought to herself about a girl who was so precious. A girl from a poor family raised so delicate that she would suffer when she arrived at her husband's house. Mother-in-law, if you ask me, no girl from 10 miles or 8 villages is as precious as your daughter. I heard that the prince-in-law is still going to offer this little girl a full moon wine. Although Tian Hohat felt a bit extravagant, since the man had already been chosen, she had no reason to refute his face. Husband and wife are one entity. Ah, yes, isn't this a happy thing? I was thinking to make everyone lively and lively. It's hilarious. I haven't heard anyone from the family even invited their daughter to drink, but they only had 2 coins to burn. Chapter 008. The Old Mother is so powerful. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mother-in-law, it's okay to be lively, but don't blame me for not speaking well. Zhou Posi glanced at the milk doll in her arms and sneered, this little baby, not to mention a female doll, is just a little boy waiting for him to be informed. You and your father-in-law are also old. Tian Hohat thought to herself, this is indeed not pleasing to the ear, it's better not to say it. In-laws, there are no outsiders, just speak up if you have anything to say. Zhou Posi chuckled and patted her thigh, then I'll be frank. De Jin is the eldest son, and he will definitely put in a lot of effort in the future. The rest, who are still young, won't be able to help with anything in the future. Mother-in-law, look at what you're saying. It seems like his father and I haven't lived long. Tian Hohat smiled coldly, almost cursing her mother. They are quite old, but they are also physically strong. But she also saw that this week the mother-in-law came to ask for money from her daughter. This daughter-in-law should be beating and beating. Since she has married, she doesn't expect to take herself as her own mother, but at least she has to put her heart in the Fu family. Don't worry, just go back to your mother's house and talk about your husband's family. Zhou Posi's smile stiffened, and she awkwardly smiled twice, intermittently saying, no, how could it be? What I mean is, in the future, you old couple will still have these 2 little ones, and not all of you will have to rely on the big gold couple. Oh my, what kind of cause, what kind of result, more kind, more gain, that would be beneficial. Shouldn't we also give some to the children? Do you think so? Fu Jiujiu blinked her eyes. She didn't originally like this old lady, with a raised eyebrow, triangular eyes, a nose facing upwards, and a strange and sinister way of speaking. I thought she just didn't pay attention to personal hygiene, but now I see that not only her nails are long, but also her hands are long. They are all reaching out to their house. It seems that the sister-in-law is not aligned with her family, and she has also contributed to it. Wow! Wow! Fu Jiujiu burst into tears at Mrs. Zhou. When she cried, it was a big deal, and Tian Hohat didn't care about anything. Mother-in-law, let's talk about anything later. Mrs. Zhou glared at Fu Jiujiu with hatred. Which child doesn't cry, but the 2 cries from the old Fu family are earth-shattering events. Mother, let's go first, Zhou said as she saw the situation and pulled off next week's mother.in-law. Don't let the little baby cry, she feels heartbroken when she sees it. Zhou Posey fiercely shook off her hand, her gaze wishing to poke a few holes in her body. As soon as she left the door, she cursed in a low voice, "It's useless. I helped you get your belongings, but you still back down. Don't cry with me in the future, this thing that heir who is babbling on." After Mrs. Zhou left, Fu Jiujiu stopped crying. Tian Hohat couldn't help but laugh and cry, lightly tapping her little nose. "You little elf bean, you're crying at the right time." Of course, Tian Hohat still thinks it's a coincidence. Either Mrs. Zhou had a bad face and scared her daughter. Mrs. Zhou sat in Mrs. Zhou's room for a while before leaving, not knowing what the two women were whispering. After the person left, Tian Hohat called Wu and Zhou to come over. Zhou's heart twitched. "What does our mother call me for?" Wu shook her head and said, "I'm not sure. If you go, you'll know." This is equivalent to not saying it, Zhou's visible displeasure. Wu is also very innocent, she really doesn't know. From the second family, take a look at what that chicken crows about. Did it get into a fight? No, they're talking about the hens from the Zhang family next door and the roosters from the Wang family in the backyard flirting. Animals are just as gossiping as humans. Since Fu Jiujiu was able to understand the language of animals, she has heard a lot of big and small things about the village from her own group of hens. Wu knew that her mother.in-law wanted to spend her money. "Oh, I have to go and see." Fu Jiujiu thought to herself, "This old lady is really impressive. She is gentle towards men, holding on to her irritable husband tightly, being kind to the younger generation without losing her dignity, and being thoughtful in handling things. Don't forget to save face for your sister.in-law." Zhou felt even more uneasy and said, "Mom, what are you asking me for?" Tian Hohat smiled and said, "It's okay. I rarely go out for a walk these days, and I don't see much in front of you." Zhou felt guilty and quickly explained, "Mother, I wanted to come over to see my sister.in-law a long time ago, but I have never had children and I don't know how to take care of children. It's not like the dexterity of the second family, I'm afraid I'll cause trouble for you." Tian Hohat didn't know what her thoughts were, but she chose to turn a blind eye and said, "You are a filial child, my mother knows." Fu Jiujiu stared at Zhou Shi with wide eyes. Although she was a little baby with a pure mind, Zhou Shi, who was being looked at by her, felt even more guilty. "Mom, my mom said those things. I didn't ask her to say them, I didn't think so. Your mother's consideration for you is also right. Taking a step back as a way forward, my mother is so powerful and skillful in her methods." Fu Jiujiu applauded the old lady first, but her hands and feet were not very obedient. Tian Hohat saw her daughter smiling at her and followed suit. "Boss, our family has earned some money, but our days are still long and we can't say anything about it in the future. We have to spend the money on the cutting edge." Zhou nodded, but with a hint of concern. "But don't worry, do you and Daijin need to see a doctor? This money needs to be spent, but don't worry too much. It's not right now, maybe fate hasn't arrived." Tian Hohat came forward and said, "You see, your father and I wanted a daughter before, but we had so many kids and couldn't wait. We don't have that thought anymore, but we do. So, we can't force it." Zhou didn't have any other thoughts, thinking about more money. If she really can't have children in the future, she and Dejin will be better off. Knowing that her mother.in-law had also planned for them, her heart warmed. Regardless of whether it was true or false, she couldn't care about it anymore. "Mother. Alright, look at that chicken still barking. It's time for Jojo to go to bed, but don't disturb her. Home cannot be divided, money cannot be divided naturally." Tian Hohat teased the little girl, "My parents still have to keep it to buy candy for my family Jojo to eat." Outside the door, the hens were blasted away. Fu Jojo was a bit disappointed. She had just heard that at a critical moment, the dog from the Huang family in the east of the village gave birth to the dog from the Lu family in the west of the village, but the dog from the Hu family became a father. This is the dog world so chaotic. The old lady was saying she wanted to buy herself candy, but Fu Jojo was a sensible little girl and grabbed her thumb. Yo, you love candy. Not right now, wait for you to get bigger. Tian Hohat smiled and sighed, my little girl, when do you have to grow up? It's getting faster, eating more, growing faster. Fu Jojo rubbed his head against her, and then she had another satisfying meal. Knowing that her own man is a hot-tempered person, this matter will be over with her, so Tian Hohat did not mention it to Fu Wani, who had sent letters back to her relatives. Chapter 009 Full Moon Banquet. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. It's strange to say that since Zhou Shi met Xiao Jojo, she couldn't see her for a day and felt heartbroken. Tian Hohat had already gone down to the ground and was eating in the hall, but there was no strong wind. However, Fu Wanwan felt sorry for his wife and was afraid that she would fall ill during the confinement period, so he didn't say anything. Fu Bajin misses his mother a bit, but when he thinks he's an older brother now, how can he compete with his younger sister for a mother? Are you awake? I will send chicken soup noodles to you. Sigh. Zhou pressed down on Wu's arm, looking a bit unnatural. The second family has cooked so many people's meals. You can take a break first, I'll go deliver it. Without waiting for Wu's consent, Zhou took the noodles from her hand and headed into the room. She always listens to the second family saying that her sister-in-law loves to laugh and always smiles when she sees her. Such a pink and tender little girl, it goes without saying that when she smiles, she is definitely good-looking. But she has been working hard these past few days, but I haven't seen her smile at me. You happen to be here. Can you help me take a look? I'll go and make it convenient for you. The baby in the postpartum period is actually quite worry-free. Apart from eating and sleeping, it won't roll over or crawl. It's quite safe to put there. But Fu Wanwan and Tian Hohat, the old couple, are just not at ease. It's not good if there's no one around Xiao Jojo. I can't. Zhou also helped people take care of the child, and her niece was over a year old. She also hugged her when she went back. It's different. My sister-in-law is the heart and soul of the whole family. If anything happens, it's okay, Jojo is so good. Tian Hohat wasn't really at ease, thinking about going and coming back quickly. Oh. Zhou looked at the little baby with big eyes staring at her, feeling a bit bewildered. Fu Jojo knows that this sister-in-law doesn't like herself. She wouldn't secretly pinch herself, would she? In her past life, her eyes were sharp and always carried a murderous aura, and many people trembled all over when they were caught a glance by herself. But now, she didn't know that the same gaze had a different effect on her body. Zhou looked at the cute and adorable doll and thought to herself, if she could have such a lovely little girl, the old Fu family would have to hold her up to the sky. Auntie, why don't you smile? Come on, smile and give your sister-in-law a smile. Zhou spoke in a gentle voice, not at all fierce. Fu Jojo is not a real baby, did she misunderstand? Auntie, they all say you're our lucky baby. So, can you let my sister-in-law have a cute little doll like you as soon as possible? This Fu Jojo is a bit embarrassed, doesn't she seem to have the ability? However, thinking that she has been married for 4 or 5 years and her stomach has not yet moved, she must feel uncomfortable in her heart. Fu Jojo decided to comfort her. Ah, I laughed, you laughed. Beautiful, cute, my heart melted. Zhou was even happier as she felt a response to her request. She dared not touch Xiao Jojo's face, afraid that she would say her hand was rough and hurt her, so she tentatively touched Fu Jojo's tender hand. After touching it, she quickly let go and smiled, but secretly glanced in the direction of the door, as if she was a thief. Fu Jojo was the first female child in the entire Yangshu village to hold a full moon wine, and also a grand event. What a beautiful scenery this is. The Fu family is so lively. The whole village, old and young, has come, even relatives who are not just barely able to be reached by the 8 poles of a village. Of course, the years are not good, I haven't eaten meat for a long time. A full moon banquet, with meat and wine. Fu Jojo was awakened early in the morning, yawning. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw a room full of people, all of whom were men. Through this period of time spent together, although we didn't see each other many times, she also realized that the one with a small mole on her face was the twin brother. That skinny boy is, Jojo, I'm your 5th brother. Fu Wujin gently pinched her little fleshy hand and said with a smile. 5 brothers. Is it the only scholar in the family? However, Fu Jojo smelled a scent of herbs on him, not ink fragrance. However, most ink is foul-smelling, and it was only the wealthy families in ancient times who had the spare money to make fragrant ink. No matter what. Although the brothers of the Fu family were born in the countryside, their appearance was not bad, but most of them had been tanned. Only Fu Wujin, who had not been exposed to the wind and sun, looked exceptionally clear and fair. Fu Jojo opened her mouth, and the baby's voice during the confinement was also from her grandmother. Mother, Jojo looks really nice. Fu Wujin took out a sachet from his pocket. A fragrance of herbs rushed in, and Fu Jojo smelled it and knew that there were 9 traditional Chinese medicines inside, including mugwort leaves, perilla, cloves, and mint. This is a full moon gift for my little sister, which can ward off insects and prevent plague. That's right, it's this function. In her past life, she was a master of traditional Chinese medicine. Fu Jojo grabbed the sachet, but her tender flesh couldn't withstand a few bites from mosquitoes. Brother Wu, it's really thoughtful. Fu Wujin suddenly smiled and said, it seems that Jojo really likes it. Tian Hohat also smiled and said, sure enough, reading a book makes a difference. I understand so much. Fu Wujin smiled and didn't dare to answer. It didn't take much time before I got on board. The family cooked and greeted the guests, so we couldn't leave them hanging. Cousin, congratulations. You have finally achieved your wish, and the auspicious star has descended. Ha ha ha. Millions, you can handle it. You can still have children at this age. Ha ha ha. Uncle, congratulations. Your family is going to soar this time. Don't forget me then. Fu Baiwan continued to burst out laughing, thinking to himself that I would work hard to give birth to a daughter. If I make a fortune, it has nothing to do with you. If I ask you to come and see, I have a daughter. In the courtyard, Fu Million's happy voice overshadowed the sound of congratulations. In the room, Fu Jojo was also surrounded by everyone. This is our little baby girl. Come on, let Sanai hold her. Fu Jojo opened her hazy big eyes and looked at the black hand stretched out in front of her, with mud between her nails, and the corner of the old lady's mouth with the foam flying horizontally. When she just spoke she held her breath, but the foul smell of sweat still penetrated her nose. The old lady wiped the corner of her mouth with the back of her hand and said, "Millionaire, let go." Tian Hohat's smile stiffened. If her family wanted to hold her little daughter, they had to wash their hands and almost had to take a shower and change clothes. This distant mistress looks like. She really can't bear to let go. No, Fu Jojo had no other choice but to keep thrusting into Tian Hohat's arms and yawning uncontrollably. Sanden Yang, the baby is tired. It's okay, I've been sleeping with more than 10 children in my arms. Don't you feel at ease, Madam San? How many crying children can just get into my arms? If it's okay, give it to me. Fu Jojo originally wanted to save face for the old lady, but she was too persistent and had no choice but to cry. When she cried, Tian Hohat didn't let go no matter what. The old lady spoke quite loudly just now, feeling quite awkward. This child. It's really unlucky. Chapter 010. Five Brothers' Worries. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Fu Jiujiu's full moon banquet was even more lively than the wedding hosted by her two brothers. Many people have oily mouths full of food, but they feel that Fu Million is sick and has money to burn. What's wrong with this money? Give a girl a movie and drink. Especially Mrs. Fan, her desire to have a son is the same as Fu Wanwan's desire to have a daughter before. But now Fu Million has achieved her wish, and there is no trace of her son here. She is also unwilling. Speaking of which, she is only 3 years older than Tian Hohot. Even Tian Hohot can give birth, and she can do it herself. This month, she has been pulling her own man around every day, but she hasn't done anything. And the third lady from the Fu family, this time she's not just here to eat meat and drink, she has other purposes. The people in the village were full and scattered, but the old lady from the Fu family refused to leave. A Million, you still live a prosperous life. Our village head's family cannot afford such a good banquet like you. Fu Baiwan also felt pain in his flesh. He spent a full 5 taels of silver this time, but as soon as he thought it was for his daughter, he gritted his teeth and endured it. Tian Hohot held Fu Jiujiu, who had not seen the sun for a long time. Fu Jiujiu was basking in the sun, warm, and his eyelids were in a fight. Sandan Yang, why are you so popular? Isn't it that we have a little girl? Our whole family is happy, lively, and lively. Don't you still know what kind of personality you have? You can pretend to be fat with a swollen face. When the old lady heard this, she smiled and didn't smile. She licked the flesh between her teeth with her tongue, but couldn't bear to spit it out and swallowed it. Osmanthus, are you crying poverty for me? Tian Hohot handed Fu Jiujiu to Wu and said, take Jiujiu back to the house and sleep. Wu was about to go pick her up, but Zhou took the lead and said, Mom, give it to me. I'll take my sister Law to sleep. Zhou seized the opportunity to get close to Fu Jiujiu. Despite having no children, she gave Fu Jiujiu all her love for them. Just now, for the sake of Fu Jiujiu, I had a few arguments with her mother. Fu Jiujiu reached out to his old lady and didn't want to leave. This old lady was quite annoying and spoke with a sharp tone, making it difficult to deal with at first glance. She wanted to share the same grudge as the old lady. Helplessly. Her arms couldn't withstand her thighs, and she was carried back into the room. Zhou's movements were very light, as if afraid of her discomfort. Fu Jiujiu was also dizzy from her swaying, but the medicinal smell on Zhou's body made her frown. Based on what she heard these days, this sister-in-law should have never been pregnant, and her family has also given money to buy medicine. But has she encountered a quack doctor? Is there a problem with this medicine? Fu Jiujiu babbled at Zhou for a while, but Zhou couldn't understand. Auntie, what's wrong? Is sister-in-law feeling unwell in her arms? Fu Jiujiu said, yeah. No, sister-in-law, do you still want to get pregnant after taking this medicine? Unfortunately, they have communication barriers. Fu Jiujiu's babbling voice, neither crying nor laughing, made Zhou feel helpless. With a kind and angry coaxing, it was almost like bowing to Fu Jiujiu. Fu Million was the first to rush back into the room, with a cold face. Give it to me, he said. Zhou felt uncomfortable in her heart and forced herself to explain, Dad, I wanted to make my aunt sleep. I didn't do anything to her. Fu Baiwan still had a cold face and couldn't tell if he believed her words. You go out, he said. Zhou felt uneasy and didn't look very good after coming out. Sister-in-law, your complexion is not very good. Fu Wujin packed his things and prepared to rush back to the county school. Zhou's attitude towards his younger uncles was neither good nor bad, and he was cold and indifferent. However, he was polite to Fu Hardware. He was a scholar and would be looked up to everywhere because he didn't go home often. Maybe I woke up early and got tired. Fu Wujin sniffed and said, Sister-in-law, have you been taking any medicine lately? Medicine. Ah. Zhou's eyes were a bit evasive. She took all the medicine her mother had brought, and in the 1st and 15th days of junior high school, she also drank some talisman paper. Don't you know about me and your big brother's situation? I know, of course I do. Sister-in-law, I have asked for a prescription for you in the county, Fu Wujin said as he took out a folded square paper from his pocket. You ask big brother to use this to take the medicine, and if the other medicine doesn't work, stop it. Cough cough. Although Zhou is older than Fu Hardware, discussing this matter is still somewhat awkward, and Fu Hardware is no exception. Hardware, thank you. Zhou took the prescription and clenched her palm tightly. She knew that Fu Hardware was also well-intentioned, but she always felt uneasy in her heart. Fu Wujin looked at her back and sighed. What folk remedies does Sister-in-law eat? Don't eat your body bad anymore. His prescription has been elusive for a long time, but he didn't have the opportunity to diagnose his Sister-in-law's pulse. If he could diagnose his pulse, he would definitely make his elder brother and Sister-in-law pick up the baby early. Dad. After Fu Hardware entered the door, his gaze fell on Fu Jiujiu's face as the little girl was sleeping. Even if he fell asleep, Fu Million couldn't bear to let go. Are you leaving? Fu Wujin nodded and said, I'll take another look at my little sister. When I come back next time, she'll be different. Fu Baiwan doted on Fu Jiujiu, and was a strict father to his sons. He instructed Fu Hardware to study hard and so on. Since giving birth to your sister, the head of the family has become a bit more affluent, and you don't have to save as much as before. Things for reading and meals are necessary money and cannot be saved. Dad, I know now, actually. Fu Wujin felt the pressure on his heart and decided to tell his father. At that moment, his mother shouted out. His father, Send and Yang and Bai Shan are leaving. Please send them away quickly. Fu Baiwan glanced at the little girl and then at Fu Hardware, look at your sister. After Fu Wanwan left, Fu Hardware approached Fu Jiujiu. Fu Jiujiu woke up as soon as she was put down. Fu Wujin pinched Fu Jiujiu's hand and said, Jiujiu, Brother Wu is leaving. The next time you come back, you will grow up a bit. Brother Wu will take you to play. Fu Jiujiu really wants to clap her hands. She's too stuffy in this room and wants to take a walk outside. Moreover, she also likes this fifth brother very much. No, she really likes every brother. Sigh. Fu Jiujiu waved her small hand and wanted to touch the handsome young man to take some advantage, but suddenly heard Fu Wujin sigh. What's going on? Brother Wu has something on his mind. Jiujiu, do you think Brother Wu should tell our father that I don't want to study anymore? No, Brother Wu, you are the hope of the whole family. But watching Fu Wujin's face collapse, Fu Jiujiu also felt a little heartbroken. Our family has spent a lot of money to support my education, and I am aware of it, but I prefer to treat illnesses and save lives. No wonder there is a scent of herbs on him. At first glance, Brother Wu has a bit of a burden on his shoulders. What should I do? My parents are all waiting for me to make a name for myself, but I sigh. Do you think fifth brother should give up? Forceful efforts are not sweet, and Fu Jiujiu also knows that her fifth brother seems to have no official fame, perhaps not for the sake of studying. It's a bit like being driven to the market. She reached out her hand, and Fu Wuwu got closer. Finally, she touched Fu Wuwu's face and gave him a smack kiss. Jiujiu, do you think Brother Wu should talk to his family? Fu Wujin's heart was filled with beauty.